Hello. All right. I am here today with Travis Chappelle, and I'm going to read Travis's bio. But I have to say, Travis, that when I read your bio, I thought that you did the opposite of what most people do, which is you undersold yourself. Usually I read the bios and I'm like, wow, really? Wow, this looks a lot. This is pretty big and wowy, and not quite exactly on par. And yours I read, and I was like, man, he could have like knocked. Anyways, I just thought it didn't do you full justice. So, which I appreciate about you. It says a lot about you. Um,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, so you're
I
welcome.
try not to say a bunch of really great things about myself. I feel like it's unnecessary most of the time, but I'll let you say some good things
Oh,
though,
I
if
was
that's
just
what
gonna
you
say
want
that's
to
my
do.
job.
Yeah.
So let me first, because now everyone's like, well, what's the bio? So let me read the mini blurb. So Travis Chappelle is a direct sales expert, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and professional connector. He's the creator and host of Build Your Network, a top 25 business podcast dedicated to helping people cultivate genuine relationships, grow their inner circle, and leverage a powerful network the right way. So, to give you context, how I found Travis and why I was so drawn to everything that you're doing is most people, almost everything out there is about, especially in the podcast world, is how to build your business, how I did it, NPR, how I built this. And yours is 100% the other direction, which is exactly my entire thinking on the influencer code, which is who are the people? What are the relationships you developed to get there? Because nobody's self-made. So that to me was, wow, nobody's doing it this way. You're really the master at building relationship, building your network. So I want to start by saying, where are you now? Like, how did you get to this? And
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So, first of all, thank you for bringing me on the show. I know that it's always a difficult decision to decide who to actually put in front of your audience. So, I appreciate you taking the time to reach out and get this scheduled. So, yeah, I've just always kind of had that entrepreneurial itch, was something that's kind of inside me, which to me is just really a combination of the inability to listen to authority combined with the desire to make money. That's like, to me, what entrepreneurial itch is all about. Like, always trying to sell things and hawk things and get people to do things and stuff like that. So I did a lot of door-to-door sales in college, which eventually led into a door-to-door sales career, which is where that first part of that bio comes from, the direct sales expert part. I was doing door-to-door sales training, recruiting, managing, and all that kind of stuff for quite a few years. And then eventually just got to this point where I realized it's not what I wanted to do long-term. I'm very much a long-term kind of a thinker. So whenever I get myself in a situation where I'm thinking that, hey, what does this look like in a decade from now? Where am I going to be in 10, 15, 20 years, or maybe even sometimes as short as 5 years? And I didn't like the answer to that question in any of those regards in that particular career path. And not to dog on anybody that does that, because it is actually a great way to make money, and it's a lot of time freedom, and you could make a lot of money doing door to door. But just for me, it wasn't what I really wanted to be doing long term. And so I jumped into personal development just to kind of figure out what it was next for me. It felt like I was a 15-year-old kid again. You know what I mean? Like, should I be a firefighter or a policeman or like an FBI agent? Like, I went through like every single choice, Amanda, and through all of it, just kind of figured out that I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do next. But I did like this personal development thing. And it was the first time I'd ever really jumped into that field. So I was listening to a ton of podcasts, and then eventually was just like, this seems like a lot of fun. So regardless of what I end up doing, quote unquote, career wise, like I think the podcast thing is going to be the next step for me. And so I jumped in, started my show, and initially was just like, okay, I know I want a podcast, but I don't know what I want a podcast about. And my first thought was sales, because that was my whole background. And then I looked up sales in iTunes, and there was only like 50,000 podcasts out there that talk about sales in some way, shape, or form. So I was like, well, that's probably a little bit of a saturated industry. Plus, I was like 24 at the time, and I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, which was to me my entire career at the time. But knowing that like other people who have sales podcasts have probably been doing sales for like the amount of time that I've been alive. So probably like maybe some other people that are a little bit more authoritative on the topic. So I was just kind of like, what is something else I could talk about? And networking was the thing that just came up in my head because it was like this such an important task. It's something that everybody has to do. It's not industry specific, which allows me to really dive into whatever field I really want to learn more about. So I looked that up in iTunes, and to my surprise, there was not really any show out there that only focused on networking specific topics. So that was kind of where it was born. And then later just kind of realized how important that topic was to me in general, because I grew up in a very unique type of a way, a super like ultra religious type of a upbringing. And so for me, I was always going to be in ministry. I actually have my degree, my bachelor's in Bible and church ministries, double majored in college. Yeah. And so it was just kind of an interesting way to grow up. And so when I jumped into the business realm, I was literally starting from scratch in terms of connections, because all of my connections were in the area that I grew up. And that particular subsect of Christianity wasn't super well connected with business people. So the most successful person that I knew going into this show was making like $150,000 a year, like the most successful person, like the person that I would reach out to for advice on wealth building and success, like 150 grand a year, that's it. And so for me coming into this, like this message really rang true for me, because I was like, man, if I really want to do something big, if I want to build big businesses, if I want to make 7, 8, 9-figure income eventually, like I'm going to have to get around people that learned how to do all this stuff and just kind of pick apart what they've done and just kind of duplicate the process. Because if somebody out there has done it, then I can do it. I just got to figure out how they did it. And so the Build Your Network thing really came into play with me, because the show resonated with everything that I wanted to accomplish. And eventually, like, yeah, I help other people build their network with the show, but it was really kind of self-fulfilling as well, because if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't have any of the connections that I have now, which is actually a really, really solid network of really good people that I can look up to and ask questions to and hang out with and stuff like that. So I know there's a long-winded answer, but hopefully that gives you a good.
It's great, because you answered actually a lot of the, you're obviously a seasoned pro at this, but you've answered a lot of the questions kind of along the way. And one of the things that I'm thinking about as you're talking, and I'm sure as people are listening at home, is, so you're right, you came from an industry that had no connection in the business world. How did you start? Because it's like, was it a cold call? Like, did you start, like, did you like search online, like who are just some random, like, how did you pick them to start off, and how did you get them on board? Because you've had some really big names. I think Tim Storey. Trying to think of different. Who did you? Was it Maxwell that you just did?
John Maxwell, Tom Bilyeu was just on recently, which was a really fun one for me, because I follow a lot of Tom's content on impact theory and stuff. So I got to actually do that one at a studio. Grant Cardone was at his studio. I got Sean T coming up at the end of the month. So yeah.
That's a dream. Yeah, that would be a dream.
Yeah. So to answer your question, it's kind of twofold. Number one was I became an epic consumer of content, which I think is necessary if you're going to be a content creator, that you also have to be a content consumer in order to find like what everybody else is doing and tailor what you want to do and tailor your own voice to what a lot of other people are doing out there, and then try to make your own unique spin on it. And so I became an epic consumer of shows and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And I kept a running tally. I kept a list of all the people that I eventually wanted to get on my show. And I would just, anytime I would be listening to a show or a podcast somebody else was doing, and I heard somebody that was on that I wanted to get on my show, I just added it to the list. And then I figured out a way to reach out, and then I would just reach out. So, and to answer the question with the second part is, so first part is become like a consumer of like, subscribe to the magazines, listen to the top shows. Yeah. Like get plugged in, because like the people that you follow probably are really well connected with a bunch of other people that have similar content and similar views, that you can then like really start following everybody. And it gets this really big intertwined network of people that you can connect with. Part two to add that answer is I was willing to pay to play. When you have no prior connection and no perceived value to offer to somebody who's of influence and has lots of demands on their time, the only real true way of getting into that circle 100% for sure is paying for it. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And that's, in my opinion, like one of the awesome things about capitalism and economics is like some of these people have worked their asses off to build insane influence and to build real credibility with a large audience of people. And they have so many demands on their time that like they literally cannot have phone calls with every single person that reaches out, or they would only be doing that always. Like they would always only be doing connection calls with people and never actually be doing anything in their business. So you have to realize that, and not only like be okay with it, but respect the fact that that's what they've, you know, made their time into, and then be willing to pay for access to some of those things. And one of the big keys for me was paying for access to somebody that was well connected, not just somebody who was successful in doing what I wanted to do, but somebody that was well connected as well, so that I'm paying once to gain access to several people through leveraging somebody else's network and credibility, and then taking advantage of that opportunity.
When you say that you are willing to pay for somebody to have access,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? Like people sitting home going, well, what does that mean? Is there somebody that provides services that says, hey, I'm going to introduce you to, you know, X, Y number of people?
Yeah. So what I mean by paying for access is like any sort, like the key to connecting with anybody who has lots of demands on their time is value. If you can offer value in exchange, you can get in front of people. But when you don't have real value, like an intrinsic value, like at the time I didn't have anything to offer to this particular person. I didn't have, like, he made millions of dollars. He was super well connected. I didn't know anybody. Like I was starting from scratch. There wasn't much value that I could exchange for time. So what is a universal language is money. Like everybody wants money. Like everybody's happy when you make them money or pay them money or something along those lines. So for me, paying for access was, I monitored this particular guy's Instagram account and saw one time that he was hosting a mastermind at his house all the way in Puerto Rico, and there's only going to be 5 people allowed there. So 5 people to me is real access. By the way, if you're looking at some of these things, you're like, oh, I'll pay for access, and you go to 1,000-person event or even 100-person event and there's 12 speakers there, and you're thinking that you're going to be able to really connect with this one speaker, like that's a pipe dream waiting to happen. It's not going to happen. You have to look for those like intimate ways to really connect with people. And then while you're in those situations, you have to figure out a way to differentiate yourself, because there's a bunch of other people that are willing to pay this guy a large amount of money. So not only do I find myself in the room by paying the money, but now is my chance to shine and bring another piece of value to the table, to where I can then build a real relationship with somebody who has a lot of value and is super well connected. And I'll give you a better example of this, even like that's on a larger scale. My buddy Dean Graziosi, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's worth about $500 million. He's a real estate trainer, a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. He's actually partnered with Tony Robbins right now. They're launching this new mastermind thing together. And Dean, I was talking to him about how he got in touch with Arianna Huffington. From the Huffington Post. So obviously self-made billionaire, and he wanted to add some value to her. So she came out with her new book. He bought like 1,000 copies or like 500 copies or so. He bought a ridiculous amount of copies of her book. And then she found out that he did that. So she was like, hey, anything I can do for you, just let me know. That was amazing. Thank you so much for helping this book launch be a success. And then he said, all I want is an interview. So he sat down and interviewed her for like an hour, and now they're like pretty good friends, and they have constant correspondence back and forth. But like, that's the whole point, is like paying for access. Obviously to somebody like Arianna Huffington, it's going to be a little bit more than, it's going to be a little bit more than just like buying, a $500 course or something like that. But for some people, that's all it takes. Like, it just depends on the person you're trying to connect with. You need to figure out a way to add value and get into that conversation. And sometimes it's going to be paying to play.
So that first thing, this was that was really great. Tangibles actually as well, because I think oftentimes we hear you need to offer value, but I think in a lot of cases when it's a big fish, sometimes the entry step is pay to play. But looking at that, I don't know if you agree or not, but looking at that as literally that, opening the door, not being the path that you follow.
Exactly.
Literally a door opener.
It is only that. Yeah. Because that's the problem too, is a lot of people are like, well, I paid for this coaching and I paid for this mastermind and then nothing happened. It was like, that's because you didn't do anything. Like, it's not like their part of the deal isn't for them to make your business successful. Their part of the deal is you now have access to them and their knowledge and their connections. It's up to you to take advantage of that. Like, that's the number one thing that I like when I do like application processes now for people to work with me, because when I first did it, it was like, oh yeah, anybody that wants to pay me money, like, I'm down to work with you. Right. But then I quickly figure out that some people just want you to do everything. They're paying you for coaching. So in their mind, it's like, well, like, I paid you for coaching and I didn't get this result and this result. And it was like, okay, well, I told you how to do it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and do your work for you, man. Like, that's like, it's not a done for you service. This is coaching. Like, I help you through the process and you do the work. Like, now it's going to work. So some people have this misconception that just paying to play is enough. And it's not. Like, paying to play gets you access to the conversation that then you can add value and build real relationships with people.
I mean, the most direct analogy, I love that. The most direct analogy is like, is fitness, right? No one expects their personal trainer to actually, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
No one would expect a personal trainer to actually be the one on the treadmill doing the workout, and they will wait, but yet we expect that of other people.
Yeah. I love that analogy.
I've seen that analogy way too many times. You witnessed that in the gym a lot. But in terms of, so now that actually leads to a really good point, because, you know, my whole career shift has been an obsession with influencer marketing in the way that is not currently perceived. Meaning, and then I get a little bit of pushback on people saying, well, so you're against, you know, paying somebody to advertise it. It actually works. And I think that's a great way to put it, that no, I'm not against that at all. I think that's but I think that is a stepping stone and not actually that's not actually results. That's the door opening. So that brings me to my question of, so in your eyes, how would you define influencer marketing, or what are the biggest misconceptions that you see with it?
That's a good question. So I would define influencer marketing by so if I'm a business owner and I have a good product or service that adds value to the marketplace, and I want to get out in front of people. To me, influencer marketing would be a way to build instant credibility and relationships, know, like, and trust with an audience that's already pre-existing, where I don't have to do the work to do it. Because relationship marketing is the most effective form of marketing, but that's the whole thing, is that it's built on a relationship. And what does relationship imply? It means that you're going to have to take a lot of time to build a connection with a member of your audience in order to provide something in exchange for money, right? So like, just having a product out there doesn't mean that you have a relationship with your client. So when you are using influencer marketing to put that product or service out into the marketplace, you are sharing credibility from somebody who's taken years sometimes, and maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, to build up their real influence and credibility with an entire segment of the population, where you don't have to do the work to do that. You're just borrowing their credibility by them taking a stamp of approval and putting it on your product and saying, you should buy this. So that, to me, is influencer marketing, is the sharing of credibility, which is the number one most important piece of the whole thing, because you don't have to do that work. It takes away all of the years of brand recognition and credibility. Like, everybody has a brand or something. Like, if I say the name of a product, you're going to think of one or two brands instantly off the top of your head. If I say toothpaste, you're thinking Crest or Colgate. If I say breakfast cereal, thinking Lucky Charms or Cheerios or something. Like, people have shares of the marketplace. So if you want to come in and disrupt that marketplace and take away profit from those companies and put them to your company, then the best way to do that, in my opinion, and I'm sure in your opinion as well, Amanda, is to use other people's influence and relationships that they've already built with their audience, and then add value to that person so that you can then get a good return on your investment with the deal. And a lot of times, one of the best things that I like about influencer marketing specifically is that you don't pay for the transaction until the sale's complete. It's like paying sales reps 100% commission. Like, there's no, if you pay for one form of marketing, you're paying for the marketing and hoping that you're going to make money on the back end. Whereas a lot of influencer marketing and sales commissions and stuff like that are done in a way where you pay transactionally, like per acquisition of a new customer. And then that enables you to be able to share that credibility with that person and build a real relationship with the people that are actually buying into what you're talking about. So I hope that kind of answers your question in terms of the way I view it. And then I know you had a follow-up question to that, but I forget what that was.
Yes, I was going to say, so I guess, yes, I think, okay, so then maybe let's move on to then, so if you're looking for an influencer, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that we're confusing audience or reach with influence. And some of the biggest influencers, if we actually look at the true definition of influencers, may have zero. They may not even have an online profile. That doesn't mean that they're not impactful. And I think we need to properly define the difference between reach and impact. And so, and based on, you know, the relationships you've developed and the true influencers that you've worked with. And this means, you know, celebrity does not equal influence. Popularity does not equal influence. Of the people that you've witnessed or worked with or interviewed, who would you say are probably the most, maybe 2 to 3 most impactful people that you see when they say or do something, regardless of what this, you know, because I think influence is very topic specific. It often doesn't carry over. Like Warren Buffett is not going to be, you know, giving, for example, fitness advice, but people will follow his stock option advice. But if you've seen like a market where people jump when they say jump, who would those people be?
Yeah, there's so many of them that I've talked to now, but a lot of them, I'll just give you a couple names. Like Grant Cardone is amazing at this. I know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but you got to respect what the dude has built. It's been very much that type of an audience base is like, he says jump, they say how high.
For people who don't know Grant Cardone, what kind of impact would you say, or who's his audience?
Yeah, so business, sales, and real estate would be Grant Cardone, like a business influencer. If you look him up, it's going to be a lot of talking about sales and a lot of talking about real estate. He has he has over $1 billion in real estate under management in his multifamily real estate syndication, and I believe it's 100% due to the fact that he's built up a tribe of influence, like real influence with people who are doing real big things in the world. Like if he didn't have his personal brand, his online personal brand, and like and stuff that he's doing with that kind of stuff, if he didn't have all of that, I doubt he'd even have $100 million under management at this point. Everything that he's built through Cardone Capital has come through the fact that he spent years and millions of dollars building a credible personal brand where he adds real value to people, which, by the way, is the number one way and really the only way to build real influence. So if you're listening to the show and you want to know how to build influence, the only way to do it is to add value to people. The only way to do it is to add value to people. I asked that question to John Maxwell, and he blew my mind when he answered that question. Like, it just makes sense. He was like, Travis, leadership is influence. And the only way to build influence is to add value to people. If you add enough value to enough people, you'll have influence with them. And it just like kind of clicked with me that like, no duh, the only reason that somebody has the power like to throw something online and have a bunch of people take action on it is because they've thrown something online before and people have taken action on it and they've gotten good results. Like that's the only reason. That's why the most influential people that we know aren't even like monetizing their influence directly a lot of times. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, like some of these people, like he doesn't have products or services built off of his personal brand. Right? People know, like, and trust him because he adds so much value totally for free. Like everything he does is thrown out there 100% for free. So whenever he has a book or an offer or a special or a wine launch or a shoe launch or whatever the hell it is, like everybody's chomping at the bit to give back to the guy because he's built so much influence and real credibility with people. It's not about your reach. It's not about the number of followers that you have or how many people like your shit. It depends on like are people moved to take action when you say something's going to work? And if that answer is yes, then you have real influence. The problem is that it's difficult to expand that. So that's really where the rubber meets the road is like, you can have influence with 1 or 2 or 3 people because it's easy to talk to somebody on a one-on-one basis. But where a lot of these guys really excel is the fact that they're creating high quality content and giving it away completely for free. And then after a long period of time, when you've already built a relationship with them, that's when you start paying them money. But then they have this product and this product and this product that actually makes them real money, and again continues to add real value to people. So in my mind, the only word that's synonymous with influence that actually like makes people give a crap about what you're doing is value. If you don't offer value to people, you'll never have influence with them. You might get a like or two because your picture on Instagram looks dope, but like they're not going to be moved to take action when you like say something that's good or bad or whatever.
And then you just answered my like the final question is like, what tips would you give to build influence? And I think you summed it up really well. And I think in a nutshell, what you're saying is that it's just like people think that somebody's an overnight success, that all of a sudden they just hit it, when anything like that, especially real relationships, takes time. And I like to use the example, it's like dating. It's like seeing somebody in a room, that's awareness. Awareness is different than interest. Interest is different than desire. You kind of going down the sales funnel. And but how do you go from like seeing a person to actually being in a marriage, and then not just to be in that marriage, to be in a happy marriage, and sort of and equate it to that doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Or from a you have a really great tip on, for those of you watching. Travis has a really great tip on Instagram, like making a connection with people on Instagram that may be really big or hard to message. And by doing an Instagram, I learned this actually reading this, an Instagram story, and you tag the person that you want to connect with on the Instagram story. Once you tag them, then you can actually message them. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. That I've gotten a lot of different guests that way. Is like, again, I became an epic consumer, right? And I use that word epic because like I was always listening to something. So like listening to a podcast a week isn't going to do the trick. Like you got to be constantly consuming shows. So I would consume something, and then I would tag both of those people on Instagram. And then a lot of times it won't even be them. It might even be their VA that goes through and hits that allow button, right? So like in the direct messages, if you don't follow somebody and they send you a message, it's not going to go in their main inbox. It's going to go in their message requests. So they'll get a ton of these message requests, and then somebody will go in and engage with those people, whether it's the actual person themselves or maybe a virtual assistant or their actual assistant, executive assistant, whatever it is, social media manager. Somebody's going to go in and allow a couple of those and be like, thanks for tuning in. Go listen to my show now, or whatever. Right. So when they hit that allow button, now you're up in their main inbox. So like you have a real chance of getting in touch with the actual person now, because you got allowed into their main inbox, just simply because like they're happy that you're listening to their show with the other person that they just recorded a show with last week. So they're going to repost that on their story and just for social proof for themselves, to be like, hey, like 12 people listened to this episode posted about it on Instagram, and I shared some of those stories. So like you should do the same thing. So they hit that allow button, and then they might even just like shoot you a heart back or a thumbs up or something. Right. Doesn't matter what they say. As soon as they get that, you're at the top of their inbox. So as soon as I get that little message in, I instantly throw my camera up, my phone, and I record a personalized video to that person specifically, and I send it immediately. And what happens is, since I'm at the top of their inbox, when you get a photo or a video directly from somebody in your DMs, it's not black text, it's blue, right? It's like a blue box, almost like a blue box with rounded edges that you get. Instead of like, hey, so-and-so sent you a message, it's like this blue thing that says like view video or something. So like, of the 25 messages in their inbox, and 24 of them are black text, and one of them says view video and it's blue, which one do you think they're most likely to tap on? Probably not the one that looks like all the other ones. You know what I'm saying? So, or probably the one that doesn't look like the other one.
That's a really great tip. I actually like it. I call it the social warm up, meaning warming them up by kind of being in their social circle on whether it's online or attending an event or whatnot. No, that's really helpful. Now, To close, I have one fun question for you because I'm always looking for recommendations for what is your favorite or most helpful business book or book that's helped you to think about
Uh,
online business.
yeah, there's so many. I'm looking at my bookcase right now. There's just I'm seeing like 6 titles that are popping out to me. um,
What
I,
are
I,
maybe 2 to 3?
yeah, I'll give you one of my go-tos that I recommend to anybody getting into business, which is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, by T. Harv Eker. It's even better on audio. I like the audio version, but it's to me it's a must. Like if you're going to be if you have any desire to like build wealth or create like financial success for yourself above and beyond what the average person wants to, then I think that's a must. You gotta go through Secrets of the Millionaire Mind for sure.
Okay, I actually just added that to my own list. Thank you. And so, where this has been a fantastic interview. You could have done it on your own without me. Actually, you just speak. It's great. Um, where can people go to learn more about you, or to maybe take up your? I know that you offer mastermind podcast kind of trainings and courses and stuff like that, which hopefully we will have on the influence. We will have some of Travis's courses and information on the influencer code as well. But where can they go to find you right now?
Yeah, so you can go to travischapel.com and find anything, which is CHAPPELL .com. So travischapel.com, you can find anything that I'm up to, anything that I'm doing is going to be on there in some way. In terms of social media, I'm most active on Instagram, which will be at Travis Chappell. And then in terms of what you were talking about, the course thing, I do have a totally free course right now. It's called Meet Your Hero, and it teaches you like everything that I know about how to get somebody's attention who has a lot of demands on their time. So that was totally free. And it's just at meetyourherocourse.com, or it's on the front page of my site at travischapel.com. So pretty much just head there. You can find anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. And we
Yes, ma'am.
on travischappell.com for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.